Good evening. This is John Bushka. And last night I went to the CATO Institute for a 4-hour program and saw a film called COVID Collateral. Where do we go for truth is the subtitle. Um, and there's a panel discussion. And here's me. And I can put on a mask for a show, I guess. I'm going to do that for entertainment. I can remember it's a little hard to do. Well, I'm not really doing it very, but I can remember in the early days, people were going to have to make masks at home and sell them with sewing machines. I remember that the sort of the doomsday prepper crowd was saying that like in April of 2020. Um, the issue, I have a blog post reviewing the film, which you can, which I'm going to give you the link for and some pictures and other videos and so forth. Um, the issue more is what happened in the panel discussion. And I'll actually jump to the end of the panel discussion where Robert Redfield, who was in the Trump administration, was was a major medical advisor along with Deborah Birx, but he was the head of the CDC. That's right. Deborah Birx was the advisor to Trump, and I think Redfield was the head of CDC, as I remember, and he wrote various articles in the Wall Street Journal, about the theories, as did Pompeo. And actually, he was pretty reliable. I think he was very reliable. In fact, all of Trump's people were actually pretty good. They appointed as far as the medicine. Trump just didn't always listen to them. But toward the end of the panel discussion, he talked about the concern of over bird flu, which deserves a little bit of attention. Um, and there's an article in Vox about the bird flu doom loop by Kenny Torella. You can you can look at that later, and I'm going to give you the link for that. But the basic idea is more that uh, bird flu, bird H5N1 is the name of the virus. There are many different H's and N's for flu viruses. It's H5N1, and I think there's an H7N9 too, but right now it's H5N1 they're concerned about. Has been moving from birds to mammals, and whole flocks of chickens and various other animals have been slaughtered recently in several states. And farm animals have been found to have it. And once in a while, it's been transmitted to people. Now, in the past, the bird flu has been very fatal, over 50% fatal when people get it. This time, it seems like in the most recent cases, it's been mild with some pink eye and so forth, so it's not quite clear. I'm also not quite sure where they are in a vaccine. I think they're quite well along with that they could get a vaccine out if they had to. I think they could, but um, what Redfield was very concerned it would just take one more mutation, just any time, to be transmitted from people to people easily. It wouldn't take much for it to become, and then we would have something that is much deadlier than COVID was. And earlier in the panel discussion, they actually talked about the lethality of COVID. Um, and the general idea was that COVID was extremely transmissible, more transmissible maybe than measles. And many people were infected who never knew they were infected and were asymptomatic. And the main problem was that they could give it to people who were more vulnerable, particularly the elderly, or particularly the people with blood vessel problems and circulatory system problems and certain other conditions. But probably most people who were infected had very few symptoms. Had the disease really didn't do much to a lot of people if they were completely healthy. I've got to make sure I don't spill any Coke or anything on anything because I spilled some coffee today and damaged suddenly a power transmitter transformer. This computer wasn't working anymore. I had to go out and get another power transformer. I don't know if I damaged it or not. Another little incident today, but you can't really see it here. But to get back to Redfield's arguments, COVID, even when it was deep in the lungs and when the symptoms, the early versions, the Wuhan version and then the Delta variant and so forth, when it was deep in the lungs, what it really was doing was causing blood vessel damage. It was kind of a vasculitis, an unusual kind of vasculitis, and causing clots and everything. And then Omicron was higher up in the respiratory tract, was more like a cold. And again, in some people, it can cause circulatory problems. And there's still the issue of long COVID, which Redfield admitted was still serious for a lot of people. But the main thing was it was very, very transmissible and asymptomatic in a lot of people. It was not like the other forms, the other coronaviruses, SARS and MERS, which were less transmissible, which were much more highly fatal. They didn't have the ACE2 in ACE2 receptor infection. They had other ways of entering the cells. So this was a very different virus, which Redfield argues is strong evidence for its having to do with a lab leak. And he even thinks that China might have been trying to develop an organic vaccine that people would just breathe in the air for something. They'd get an infection that did not make them sick and it would make them immune to all coronaviruses or all viruses that came from certain families of viruses or something. That seemed to be the idea. And there was, in September of 2019, China shut off access to one of the databases. There was various other incidents in the fall that the Wuhan lab shut down all communications for a few days in early October. And it seems from conversations that people who had contacts in China were being told that they knew something was wrong. I've even heard that personally. In fact, I even got a couple of bizarre emails from China that fall in October. So something was going on. It's pretty apparent to me that it was that gain of function research that the United States helped fund, that Fauci helped fund a few years before in Wuhan. It was not properly supervised. And I think as far as applying this back to bird flu, the bird flu doom loop, the argument can be made that gain of function research, if you did that with bird flu, could be what sets off a pandemic. And it could be much worse than what SARS was. So that point was made in the panel discussion after the movie last night at CATO. So anyway, I'll give you the link for my review of the movie and also a Vox article that was just published today. And that should inform you. This could get to be serious, and no matter who wins the next election or something. If bird flu gets out in the open, it could be serious. Now, I had one other thing. When I was traveling in California in February of 2002, which was shortly after my layoff from ING, and I was taking my severance money and having some traveling and so forth, because I still had severance for 8 months. And I got ill. I got high fevers at night that would subside. And then it would be okay, but then it would get worse again. And then finally it went away. But I don't get sick like that very often. And and I've always wondered, the SARS didn't get here until a little bit later than that. But I've always wondered if there were other variations of SARS viruses floating around that we don't know about. And if you happen to get one of them, did that mean that you had more protection from COVID 20 years later? It might have, because I had very little trouble with it. I had a little bit of loss of taste of smell in February of 2021, which went away after the second vaccine. And then I had a scratchy throat for about 3 or 4 days in summer of 2021 after I'd been in the bars in New York that summer. Remember the Provincetown outbreak? And I just, also don't want to forget the contributions that young people made during that, particularly Avi Shipman with his INCOV COVID 2019 is in 2019 statistical virus website, which I think is still up. I'll get you the link for that also. And also Mike Donnelly had made some interesting websites in the early part of the epidemic. But that's what I had to say today, is to just warn you that this could become another problem real soon. And I do thank you for listening.